Good afternoon, YouTube. Rather cool grey afternoon with the threat of rain, but I thought I'd just make another little video here. Well, mainly associated with a complete coincidence that my good friend Will there in Junebug Piper just visited a castle in Heidelberg. You won't believe this, Will, but on the same day we were visiting a castle as well in Switzerland. It was the Habsburg Castle, and the Habsburgs were once a mighty empire building royal line which built up the Austro-Hungarian Empire and was one of the mighty European empires of the Middle Ages. Of course, from 1918 onwards, much of it had disintegrated. And when you look back at those times in the Middle Ages, the 1200s, the 1400s, you just have to forget the map of Europe, because the countries as we know them today and the borders mostly didn't exist. Many countries like Germany and to a certain extent Britain were much more divided up and not all unified, and many feudal kingdoms existed. Switzerland didn't exist as it does in the modern day. So this castle, going back to the 1100s and 1200s, was quite amazing in the changes it's seen, and it's still standing there. Of course been rebuilt and renovated in part. So I took a little bit of footage just to share it with you. I put a link down below which gives the history. It's actually on their Habsburg Castle website. If you ever come to Switzerland, visit it. It's free. It's free, and it has an excellent restaurant, as you will see. It gives a fair amount of the history there. When you're actually there at the castle, they have these loudspeakers with buttons that you can press the English one as well, and it gives you a recount of at every stopping place a little bit more history. But it's quite a profound cornerstone of Swiss history, because the beginning of the Swiss Confederation was part of this castle's history, and the Bernese troops, for example, took it over in a period when in fact the Confederation of Switzerland was unifying and gaining more power, and over about 100 years, in 3 or 4 very critical battles, the country more or less had become one of its own right, and was not, as in the past, owned either by Austrians or the Southern Germans or the Burgundians from France. So it's quite profound history. A little bit you'll get out of this video clip, and some of it maybe from the link I put below. It was interesting that the beginning of the castle was a Count Radbot who was going out with his hawk on his shoulder, his favourite hawk, and the hawk flew off, and nobody knew why, because it should have gone and caught a rabbit or something like that. And when they found it, it was perched and suddenly in a lovely flat area on the top of the hill, and Radbot realised this would be a fantastic defensive position to build a castle. So that's how it started, you know. A little later in the 1200s was King Rudolph, also lived there for a while, and he was actually from Schwabenland, from southern Germany, but was one of the builders of the great Austrian Empire, because he had lands in what is today Austria, and also in France, in Alsace, as well as Switzerland. And these great dynasties of the aristocrats, royalty of that time, built up their kingdoms and expanded them. And it's really, I could have stayed there all day, and you could read pages in Wikipedia. For example, I'll put the link about King Rudolph, because his own personal history is absolutely fascinating. Well, take a look, see what you think about it. So here we are at the Habsburg Castle in Argau, a couple of cantons distant from where I live, maybe about 50 minutes drive. Lovely view up here, and these are the ruins of the castle, which is still partly intact. And this is part of what was the East Tower, as you see here. Now we talk about the 11th to the 13th century and King Rudolph the First, a beloved king apparently at the time, and lived here. There's quite a few parts of the outer wall here that are still here. Quite popular today, a Sunday, a lot of people visiting, and almost full parking lot, about a couple hundred metres below the castle. And there is the castle itself up there. So the central part has been restored, of course. There's a restaurant we shall be visiting a little bit later on after our walk. This is the North Tower. 1.3 metre thick walls. And in the big plan, that's where we are, of what the castle used to look like. And everywhere they've got these little loudspeakers which give you a lot of information. And here it comes in English, inclusive of medieval lute music.
A count named Radbot once lived in Altenburg on the river Aare. It is said that Count Radbot, who loved to hunt with birds of prey, set out early one day on a hunt with his trained hawk, his squire, and several fellow hunters. The first rays of sunshine were just penetrating the lush leaf cover formed by the ash and beech trees of the forest, and it promised to be a magnificent, clear day. Some wild animals are already visible, but at too great a distance from the edge of the forest to make them a viable prey. Count Radbot arrives at a forest clearing with his retinue. Out of breath, he leans against a large tree trunk, his hawk perched proudly on his arm.
So we're just up here on a terrace part of the castle where there's a nice view of the valley and hills around. Everybody's, some people are out at least having lunch. We're booked also to have one. And there is the restored central part of the castle. Here with the wooden steps, a lot of it's been renovated here. And here is the royal line of the Habsburgers. You see very clearly given here from 956 all the way on to King Rudolph, who lived in this castle around 1274, also Bishop of Constance. This could be interesting. Wine cellar.
Closed. Locked.
Oh, it's locked. Just as well. That's where the dungeons used to be. And this is where we are. It's still a little bit on the halfway, if you like, between the outside and the inside. The rear castle. Because from the highway between Basel and Zurich, you actually see it up on the hill, the castle on the front part here. So there's the highway. You see the castle from there, as we did, approaching, and the hills that go into the Kanton of Argau.
At the end of the 13th century, initial
Growing some
hostilities
grapes
evolved
down there.
between the Habsburgs and the entities that will later become the Swiss Confederation. At the same time, the Habsburg family is struck by calamity. In 1308, Rudolf's son, Albrecht, is murdered by his nephew, who feels he was cheated out of his inheritance. While the Habsburgs are busy with family matters, some cities and territories exploit the vacuum in the Habsburgs' power, and allegiances are established that will eventually lead to the formation of the Swiss Confederation. The original forest cantons of Uri, Schwyz and Unterwalden are soon joined by the city cantons of Lucerne, Zurich and Bern, and then later by Zug and Glaris. The Habsburgs are not at all happy about this, with the result that the Swiss and the Habsburgs confront each other in the Battle of Semmach in 1386. After almost 100 years of hostility between the Habsburgs and the Swiss, the battle finally decides the struggle. In what today is Switzerland, a confederation of politically autonomous lands is formed. Several years later, Duke Frederick IV of Habsburg has a bitter dispute with the German king Sigmund. In 1415, the king declares a royal ban on the despised Habsburg. Duke Frederick IV is thus deposed, and his neighbors are called upon to take the Habsburg territories. King Sigmund sends a letter to the Swiss Confederation which proves disastrous for the Habsburgs.
Interesting information about the method of building back though. You see the sort of more haphazard bricklaying, and then this T style where the bricks were placed always to make sure the vertical lines didn't align, give it more strength. Using very large stones to compress, and alternate smaller and larger stones to add strength. Ending up in these incredible structures which is, let's face it, lasted hundreds of years, all got out of, most of it, limestone. Of course, they found some interesting glazed pottery, which was used to decorate the inside of the castle. Filet on a kebab stick, beautiful. Look at this with cognac. It's marvellous, huh? Isn't that fantastic? Wunderbar. It was quite interesting. And how about that fantastic lunch we had there? We had one of their specials, which is the lovely filet pieces on a a skewer with brandy and flambe, and it was just really beautiful and lovely wooden panelled room. So I mean, a lot of the castles or places you go, they have snack bars and stuff like that. This is a real restaurant, and very good wine choice and local wines, some I didn't know from that part of Switzerland. It was excellent. Really a highlight of the visit as well. Well, I'm forgetting my housekeeping, aren't I? The lighter has service today is my own little Redcoats Return engraved star lighter with all the fuel saving grommets and bands attached. And this little Capitello with a meerschaum insert was one of the very first pipes I bought from the place that I'm going with John Panzer on Wednesday this week, Tabakfabrik Roth, and it was about 50 francs, very inexpensive, 9mm, and still going today like a champion. The tamper is Bouncing Betty from Larry Blackett. Totally beautiful, isn't it? Lady in 1700s clothes with a lantern, beautifully polished. And in it, slowly getting to the last of the Ennerdale. Actually, have it in my pouch here. From Merchant Service, you remember that one that Eric put us on to? What would we do without Eric? I wouldn't know about these tampers, and I wouldn't know about this. But I love this surgical lining. It really is worth getting one with that, because it does keep it moist. I've forgotten the music, haven't I? This is English Baroque. I've really turned it down now, so that some of you said it's a bit loud sometimes, but now I can almost hardly hear it, so let's turn it up a little bit. One notch at least. But in the post today, from my good friend John Wright. John makes these, he basically takes coins or replica coins that they can be affordable things for us, and makes these beautiful boxes out of it. Was it Victorian Piper? Excuse me, it was Victorian Piper who put us onto this one, wasn't it? And you got, my friend, didn't you, a Victorian coin? Well, I, being, you know, the 1700 redcoat kind of guy, got one from George III, who reigned actually a very long time, 73 years, up to what, some 1820 to the mid 1700s, I think. He was certainly there in the Revolutionary War. At that time, the Mad King they called him, but that happened to him a bit later in his life, really. And there he is on the back. He used to sometimes have a sort of fluffy hairdo, and they used to call him Old Pineapple Head, because it all stuck up, like, you know, with fronds and fluffed up, as was the fashion of the day, no doubt. And I've got still an English shilling with his from his time, with his head on it, but John has done a beautiful job here. Really an excellent piece of work. Look at it. Now, of course, I had a little method in my madness, you might say, because I was thinking, I think this is just about big enough for a bowl, maybe not in your largest pipe, and I think I'm right. Certainly for this little Capitello, it's a perfect size for a bowl of tobacco. You can put pills in it and other stuff, you know, or whatever, but especially flake, because flake you can pack into the middle of it and then the screw doesn't get gummed up or something. If you put ribbon cut in there, you might have more of a problem. But you know, if you're all dressed up to the nines in your dinner jacket and you know, wearing your very best attire, you would fetch this out and charge your bowl with tobacco from this lovely object. And I mean, looking at it, you'd think it's silver. I think it's, of course, nickel plate, but it's absolutely beautifully done. You would really think both sides are made from the coin, but of course there has to be, you know, a replica, otherwise. Do have a look. Sells on Etsy. Take a good look. John Wright, excuse his website here, and you find him on Etsy with these lovely, beautiful coins. Well, I'd like to make a few shout outs here. Catching up with my kind subscribers, which I really want to thank. Joe Wagner, thank you very much for your sub. Dean the Philistine, lovely name, thank you for your sub. Chris Woodsman Fell, thank you, sir. What's up, mate? Classic name, that one. Smokin', thank you, sir, very much for your subscription. Dude Reviews, lovely. Austin Quinlan, thank you, sir, for your subscription. John Pitarazi, we have to go to Las Vegas together. I have a feeling you have a lucky hand with things. Well done, mate, on those scores. Super, and love your videos. Constitutional Piper, sir, thank you very much for subscribing. Suave P, what a lovely name, Suave, super. And Josh Langerman, thank you, sir, very much for your subscription. Mick Moore, thank you very much, old mate, for looking in and subscribing. Jose Feld, thank you, sir. I much appreciate you and your interest in my channel and my content. And Cheshire Piper, my dear fellow. Did also want to mention someone I've been watching his videos. He's made quite a few in recent times and touches on visiting local interesting places with history, and that's Mike Rondeau. He did lovely videos from his shed, and that was actually, you were one of the people, Mike, who motivated me to get on with my shed, because I want to have a shed to smoke in, you know. But he started the kind of visiting local places in Rhode Island, and you know, some spooky story places which were really interesting, and can definitely recommend his channel. You know, it touches all kinds of different things, and I think you're already up to 100. You know, you're growing very rapidly, so that's great. We constantly have this wonderful rejuvenation of YTPC, and I just think that's great, and we all should encourage and help each other as much as we can. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for looking in. End of this week I'll have a nice one from me and John Panzer about this lovely tobacco company we're going to visit. It's going to be a lot of fun. You take care, everyone. Look after yourselves. If you like the video, thumbs up is always appreciated. If you're not a subscriber, why not subscribe? I'll give you a shout out later on. Take care, have a good week everyone. Cheers, bye bye.